So in this video, we're going to be covering what are the best 5 long-range rifles after the Season 5 Reloaded update. This is the final meta of Warzone when it comes to long range before we move into Warzone 2.0, so you definitely want to stick around for the rest of this video. If you do enjoy this style of content, don't forget to subscribe, as we will be making tons more Warzone 2 videos. So before we get into any of the actual numbers, I just want to quickly show you the patch notes, which I'll leave linked in the description. And we're just going to quickly run through some of the changes that took place here. So obviously we've got the addition of 2 new weapons, which the Liena, we do have the actual stats for this, surprisingly. The S5.R website have actually managed to data mine the stats for this gun as well, so we did include the numbers of this weapon. Then we did get changes to the CR56 AMAX, the M4A1, the Automaton, the QBZ, Odin, the EX1 as well got a bit of a change, but the EX1's a really weird weapon. It's not really a gun I can recommend because it just doesn't shoot standard bullets, but on top of that, it's kind of like not a fully automatic weapon, and it's not like a kind of semi-auto weapon. It's kind of weird on how you understand to use this gun, so that is a really weird and strange kind of weapon to use. Odin has not really been meta for a while, so I don't really see it changing too much. When it comes to Assault Rifle Bravo from Vanguard, I can't really remember. This is the Itra Burst. Again, burst fire weapons are not really that powerful in the meta of Warzone 1. EM2 did get a bit of a buff here. S5.R is something that I'm really surprised to see buffed. They did actually buff the kind of movement stats of this weapon and not the TTK numbers, so we won't be really covering that too much in this video, but it's still something you can try out because it could be a solid sniper support weapon. Then we've got the Volk, and then lastly we do have the UGM8 at the bottom here as well, which actually got some damage nerfs across the board. So now we're moving on into the actual TTK numbers right here, and we're going to try and get through this as quickly as possible because there's so many guns to get through now, because we're going to go through LMGs and ARs for the final meta of Warzone. So we did use this shot location, which is based around my Cold War stats, and it just gives you kind of an average of where your shots are landed. And then we've got all the guns right here with their long range and close range time to kills. So the main one we want to focus on is long range, but I'll quickly want to show you the 2 new rifles here. So we've got the Liena with its new TTK numbers, which you can get from the sim.gg website yourself if you want to try it out, and then the BP50 as well with a long range build. Now what we are going to do is arrange this from A to Z in the second damage range because we want to see which guns actually kill the fastest, and then we'll also think about which guns have decent recoil control as well to go along with that. Now when it comes to the first couple of weapons, all these guns don't really have great recoil control, so we can't really include them even though they do have some insane TTKs, but when it comes to the PKM and the Brune, they are pretty solid and you can definitely get away with using them, but there's guns that are definitely easier to use with only a little bit more of a longer TTK. So we've got the Whitley and the UGM8, both solid weapons, but the UGM8 is still the main rifle to use in my opinion over the Whitley. Even though it's got a slightly slower TTK now, it's still super easy to use, and it's a no-brainer really. Then we're moving on to the EM2, which got a buff, but if you do look at the TTKs of some of the weapons slightly further down the list, you can get an extra 5 milliseconds or so, and you could just use the Cooper Carbine instead, and that's super easy to use, whereas the EM2 is a little bit more difficult to use in terms of recoil control. So like I said, Cooper Carbine is a solid choice. Vargo 52 is right behind that as well, again a super easy to use weapon, so I mean it's almost a no-brainer to use these guns too. Then we've got the C50A, which I think is a solid choice, but then if you look slightly further down that list, again we've got the XM4, which is easier to use than the C58, so again the XM4 is a solid choice. Now the Liena is looking like a good rifle so far. It might have an overall solid TTK, but we don't really know what the recoil is like of this gun. Now obviously there is a meta build that you can see on the sim.gg website, but overall we still need to feel it in game before we can actually make a decision. Then we do have the AMAX here, which is 862 milliseconds of TTK, which is definitely an improvement from what it was before, but the M4 is going to be an easier choice to use once again, so it almost makes no sense to use these kind of higher damage, more recoil guns, because there's always a gun that's very close to it in TTK that has like pretty much 0 recoil. Then we have the Grau, which actually got a bit of a buff with this recent update, so the neck multipliers and stuff actually got buffed with the Grau, so overall definitely a solid choice because it's super easy to use. Then we have the Bren as well, again slightly easy to use, but I did get a bit of a recoil now back in the day. We also have the Automaton, which actually got a nerf. We've got the STG, which has got 980 millisecond TTK, but the Kilo, again, is not far off that. And in my opinion, the Kilo is a little bit easier to use. So that's why I always recommend the Kilo in my top 5 list. And then when we've got the last couple of weapons down at the bottom here, so we've got the EX1 and the BP50, which are just like super slow TTK guns. So getting into the actual top 5 list right now, then we're going to fire through these very quickly because we all know the builds by now. Warzone is ending and we should know what the builds are for the meta weapon. So like I said, honorable mention for me is 100% the Kilo. It's super easy to use, and if you are using the STG right now, you might as well use the Kilo because it's a way easier gun to use. And overall, in terms of like bullet velocity and stuff, you actually will get better values with the Kilo. So the main build is mono suppressor, prowler barrel, VLK optic, 60 round mags, commando foregrip. At number 5 on the list, we have to pick the newly buffed Grau, super solid weapon in the game right now, and I think it's going to be the most picked weapon for the end of Warzone for sure, because A, it's nostalgia, and B, it's just a solid choice. So mono suppressor, archangel barrel, VLK optic, 60 round mags, commando foregrip. We could also use the iron sight build on this gun because it's the only one assault rifle in the whole entire game that has clean iron sights, even after all the additions of all these new weapons. So at number 4, we have the XM4, a well-balanced rifle that's got reasonable recoil control, and then also it has a very middle of the pack TTK as well, which is actually not a bad thing because it just means this gun is just overall going to perform when you need it to. So overall, this is the best build as well. So agency suppressor, task force barrel, axial free time, 60 round mags, and field agent grip. At number 3, we have the Vargo assault rifle, which is a solid choice. Now the recoil is a little bit more difficult to use than the XM4, but it's still an easy weapon to use overall, and it is going to delete people relatively quickly as well if you can land your shot. So GRU suppressor, task force barrel, axial free times optic, Spetsnaz 60 round mags, and then the Spetsnaz grip. This is the meta build for pretty much most Cold War guns. At number 2, we do have the Cooper carbine. Like I said, it's super easy to use, and it actually has a lot quicker TTKs than most of the harder to use weapons in this game. So it's kind of a no-brainer to pick the Cooper carbine right now. So MX silencer, Cooper custom barrels being the best for this gun since the beginning. G16 optic now because they did kind of nerf the 3 to 6 times optic. Cooper 45 stock, tight grip on hand, polymer grip, 60 round mags, lengthened, and the strafe angled grip. You can actually go and use the hand stop as well. Both are solid choices really. But this gun is an absolute laser beam in this game right now. Last but not least, at number 1, we do have the UGM8. Like I said, it actually has one of the fastest TTKs when it comes to any rifle in this game. So it obviously makes sense to have it at number 1, and on top of that, it is easy to use. Even though it did get a nerf, you could still beam with this gun super easily. So MX silencer, Bernard barrel, the G16 optic, the anchor stock, tight grip, and you want to use on hand if you do have it available. I'm using surplus to level up the weapon. Hatch grip, 75 round British mags. I do think these are the best. Now you can use the 100 round Sakura box mags, I believe, which gives you extra bullets, but it still controls your recoil. The British mags still control your recoil, but you do get a bit more movement with the 75 round mag, so that's why I prefer these ones, even if I did unlock the 100 rounds, then lengthened, then strafe angled. This is the best build for the UGM8. So there we have it. Those are the 5 final meta long range rifles inside Warzone. Let me know what you think about this list down in the comments below, and thank you very much for watching.